I was once at the grocery store and I bumped into, many of you might share past experiences like this one, you bump into someone that you know vaguely and you stop your shopping cart, you catch up with them, you try to remember, gosh, where do I know this person? You're having this conversation. Then you've talked enough and you think, okay, I need to now eject from this conversation because I need to move on with my day. But in this particular situation that I'm referring to, the lovely individual wasn't exactly picking up my social cues. Oh, I headed somewhere, picking up these cheeseburger patties for a barbecue or a grill out. And there's something that's, the oven's on, I gotta get home or something, I don't know. And you're dropping these hints, they're not getting it. And minute after minute passes by, just talking. And that's what I have here for you in the form of an interview with Donald Trump and Greg Kelly. Greg Kelly is trying to end the interview and keeps trying to find a little moment to jump in and let Trump know that he wants to wrap up. And Trump just bulldozes through and continues going off the rails. So many crazy moments. So we'll go in reverse chronological order. I'll show you Greg Kelly trying to wrap up the interview, sort of nervously licking his lips as he does, strangely, in these interviews. And then we'll look at the rest of the interview that was not much better. Here is the first moment.
$100 million.
It's wild.
With nothing.
Mr. President.
And he's the one that's the fraud because he said a house that's worth $1 billion or more is worth $18 million. Everyone's trying to figure it out. You buy a piece of land, 100.
I do need to get home. It's getting a little bit late. We should. I need to check on my dog that's home alone. You can see the stress in his face. Aaron Rupar wrote on X to this next clip, "Lol, this is just a pathetic showing from Kelly as he cannot get a word in edgewise."
Prosecute Donald Trump for something that he knew absolutely nothing about. They didn't know anything about. They didn't know was there a crime. There was no crime.
You startled me. Goodness gracious. I guess since you're here now, I'll ask that you subscribe to the YouTube channel by clicking that subscribe button if you want to help us continue to grow.
In fact, one of the things, the big defense is that everybody says is there's no crime here. There was no crime. Prosecute Donald.
And just the ramblings that we hear from Trump here. Aaron Rupar says, poor Greg Kelly can't get a word in amid Trump's verbal diarrhea.
I don't think it's even close. And a lot of that money was small.
And a lot of this, apologies for our podcast listeners,
I don't think it's even
is visual. He's sort of, but I can't quite get
close. And a lot of that money was small donor money. I think it was $71 average, $71. But we raised more money than, nobody ever saw. I think we did $58 million almost immediately after the verdict came out. But I did expect a verdict because the judge, when he made up this horrible charge, the instructions to the jury, many people, very smart. Look, we had Greg Jarrett and so many of the Andy McCarthy, Jonathan Turley, brilliant guys, incredible guys, Dershowitz, incredible people, Mark Levin, you know all of these people, all of the people from Newsmax.
I know I'm referencing a bunch of different examples, but this also reminds me of sort of I don't have this in my family, but some people say that other people will have just a family member, an uncle or something, that at Thanksgiving is the archetypical sort of situation. You have him just sitting there going on and on and on about something. And, Jonathan Turley said there was no case against Trump, but Trump did nothing wrong. And, Mar-a-Lago's worth $2, $3, $4, $5 billion. And you're just sort of nodding along. The other example people use is sitting next to someone on the subway, just ranting. And even Greg Kelly seems a little bit lost. Here's Trump getting to now, I guess, thinking Mar-a-Lago may be worth $2 billion.
Then Letitia James and Judge Engoron, where he comes up with a ruling that Mar-a-Lago is worth $18 million when it's worth, maybe 100 times more, 50 to 100 times more. But that was good for his narrative. And they came out with a phony opinion because everything was perfect. In fact, our expert, highly respected, one of the most from the Stern School of Business, one of the most respected people, the judge treated him so disrespectfully, very much like this judge treated we had an expert, we had the number one person on elections, and essentially he wasn't allowed to testify.
It's amazing.
And nobody can believe it. That's one of many infractions. One of many.
Just doesn't let him talk. It's brutal. These interviews are just therapy sessions for Trump, where he calls in, literally here, calling in to a helpline to just rant and rant and rant. And Greg Kelly has to sit there and stare at the camera and say nothing. How is this compelling to MAGA supporters? I really don't, I don't get it. And by the way, before getting to a really unfortunate and scary moment from Trump here, whenever he goes through and lists off, as he does, all of his grievances in a row, it makes it, to me, but apparently not to his supporters, that much more likely his theories about these things are not accurate, which they're not. But I'm saying, even if you set aside the lack of evidence to bolster the conspiracy theories about this being a big set of witch hunts to take Trump down, even just the coherence of the theories themselves, separate from how evidentially backed they are or aren't, it's strange to hear him just ramble from one thing to the next. You know, and they're saying I tried to interfere with an election by trying to overturn it, and that's a witch hunt. That's fabricated. They say that I sexually abused someone in the civil trial, and that I've never met her. I don't know who she is. I made that up. They said I engaged in business fraud. That was all rigged. They say I'm a convicted felon. That was all rigged based on falsification of business records. They say I stole classified documents. That's rigged. And as he lists more and more, you start thinking, as if we weren't thinking this before, maybe everything's not rigged against Trump. Maybe he is the one bringing this on to himself. Here's the moment where he makes quite the threat.
But wouldn't it be terrible to throw the president's wife and the former Secretary of State? Think of it, the former Secretary of State, but the president's wife into jail.
Struggling to get that out of his mouth.
Wouldn't that be a terrible thing? But they want to do it. So, you know, it's a terrible, terrible path that they're leading us to. And it's very possible that it's going to happen to them. But
how can you say that, by the way? Think about this. They're accusing Democrats, wrongly, of weaponizing the justice system against Trump. We've talked about why that's ridiculous. I won't go through it again here. But then they're saying, that's horrible, right? Engaging in witch hunts against the other side, that's horrible based on baseless allegations. Okay, so that's the horrible theory they have. But then they're overtly saying, but we'll do that to you. Sure, we're saying it's in self-defense. We're wrong about that. But still, does it make it even justified for you to go, so get ready, we're going to wrongly now try to prosecute you? Which is truly unhinged. Truly, truly unhinged. I've said it before. This is the inevitable path toward an authoritarian future where Trump does try to go after his political opponents. There has to be an explanation. I said in a past segment, but sometimes we assume that authoritarianism sort of comes out of thin air. It doesn't. There'll be an explanation. They'll have some reasons they lay out as to why it makes sense in their mind. And this is it when it comes to the weaponization of the justice system. Wrongly accusing the other side of doing that so that they can do it. Same thing happened with the elections. Accusing Biden of election interference, while Trump then was using the fact that he was lying about Biden doing that to allegedly illegally engage in election interference, trying to block the peaceful transfer of power, based on saying the other side was trying to do that. Crazy. Here is, before getting back to the Trump interview, Dan Bongino, a right-wing host, making this explicit threat as well.
We're not forgetting about any of this, lefties. Are you listening to us? We here. I don't care what you're hearing from Republicans on Capitol Hill. We are not forgetting about shit. Do you get that? We are going to hold every one of these people accountable. And if we can't find politicians that'll do it, then we're going to find someone else. There is absolutely zero chance we are going back to normal.
I don't even know. I have my guesses, but I don't know what the heck he means by if we can't find politicians do it, we'll find someone else. You can fill in the blank there. Disturbing stuff. Speaking of disturbing, here's this from Trump.
Terrible, terrible thing that's happened to our country. And they're coming in from prisons and jails. They're coming.
Mental institutions and insane asylums. That's what you're going to say every single time. Same list, says it the same way. Very uncreative, very mentally deteriorated.
From mental institutions and above that, insane asylums. And you have a lot of terrorists coming into our country. And it's a terrible thing that he's doing. He's poisoning our country.
Right out of the mouth of Hitler. That's exactly the type of stuff that Hitler was spewing. And I'll say it again, when these individuals say, no, we just care about addressing issues at the southern border. That's why we're okay with Trump saying this insanely dehumanizing stuff. But you don't, though, because you're siding with the guy who's actively encouraging Republicans to obstruct solutions. So now Biden's trying to go around them with executive actions that I think might be slapped down in the courts. But he's encouraging Republicans to shoot down solutions for political purposes. So you're siding with the guy doing that just because the hate-filled fear-mongering is so juicy. Instead of being level-headed, not dehumanizing, not emphasizing so much what could be the most frightening way you can fictionalize this topic, and instead having a level-headed discussion about policy. Come over to the side of reason and leave this rambling, ranting, raving mess.
Time ago, or just left in place your executive orders. What do you think of what he did today?
Well, first of all, it's a nothing what that he did, and allowing massive numbers of people still to come in, and it's just misinformation, disinformation, and just another hit job.
He's saying Biden doing what he can to go around Congress since he's getting Congress to obstruct. Dan, we're not going to forget this, okay? Are you listening to me, Dan Bongino? We're not going to forget that you don't actually want to solve border issues, all right? Focus. Anyways, what was I saying? That really distracted me. Biden's doing what he can to go around Congress now. And Trump's saying that's another hit job, but he's doing the things that Trump pretends like he wants to see done at the border. Doesn't make sense with the situation that we're in. Let me know what you thought of all that in the comments. And if you want to get more of this, but exclusive version of this, you can do so by clicking the join button below to get the daily bonus show.